Ladies and gentlemen, you're gonna have to trust me this time.
He's got no reason to lie to you, my most wonderful friend.
Moldova has one of the most infrequently encountered cuisines of the world. You virtually never see it outside of Moldova itself, of course. Moldova is located just east of Transylvania in Romania. The country is rich in agriculture, but meat is expensive and generally served only in tiny portions as an appetizer course, and the entree being entirely vegetarian. Vegetable-based sauces are common. There are also surprisingly good wines and cognac produced there, and these are often used in cooking too. While the sauce is not a specific classic Moldavian recipe, it uses the ingredients and methods of classical Old World Moldova. If you're a vegetarian who craves meat, this sauce is going to win your heart. It has a strong taste of meat, even though it is made completely from vegetables. Now, any good chef could make a vegan mushroom sauce that mimics meat, but this has no mushrooms either. What is really special about this is that it pairs insanely well with Parmesan cheese, so you can put it on pasta dishes and make a very interesting version of eggplant Parmesan, and we'll look into that more later at the end of this video. Let's begin.
So the first step here is to get the peel off the tomatoes. I'm also going to remove the stem here. You just make a slice on the back. Most people know how to do this anyway. It's going to go in boiling water for a minute, then into ice bath, and then you'll be able to peel it. And repeat that with all of the tomatoes. Okay, water's boiling. I'll put in tomatoes. Leave them there for a minute. After a minute, we're going to transfer them over here to this ice bath. Now you can see the peel's already coming off them without even having to touch them, so they'll be very easy to peel. Just let them cool down for a few minutes. And here's what they look like after they're peeled, and we're going to cut those up. Even though the celery root is going to go into a food processor, in order to get it started, we're going to cut it into strips like this. It doesn't have to be exact, of course, because it's going to be cut again. I cut it first into thin sheets, and then you can just take it down like this so that it ends up being even after it comes out of the food processor. And we'll repeat that with the rest of the celery root. Okay, other things that are going to go in the food processor. The onion, I'm just going to chop it up roughly. Garlic, same thing. Just give it a quick chop just to get it started. I've got one red chili pepper here. I'm just going to take the stem off of it. A couple chops that can go in the food processor. Then we have the parsley. As you can see, 3/4 of an ounce or about 22 grams of parsley. It's a lot of parsley. And that's one of the things that's very typical for Moldavian cuisine. They put tons of parsley in things that are cooked for a long time. Not very common really anywhere else in the world that I know of. They don't use this much parsley and cook it for this long. As soon as you start doing that already, you start thinking Moldavia for the taste. And finally, we've got the red bell pepper. We'll just give this a quick couple chops too before it goes into the food processor. All I did here is I cut those skinned tomatoes up into quarters. Now I'm going to add the contents of the finely cut vegetables onto the top of this, directly over the top of the tomatoes. I'm not going to stir this around. I'm going to leave the tomatoes at the bottom. There's a reason for this. The bottom of the dish is going to get hot. We want tomatoes to caramelize and the juices to come through. Now I'm going to take about 2 teaspoons of salt, and then I'm going to add to the top of this, along with a very generous amount of olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. How much is this? Maybe 1/4 cup. It's a little difficult to estimate. I never tried to estimate it carefully. It's about 1/4 cup, I'd say. And now the lid's going to go on this and it's going to braise. This is after the braise. You can see the tomatoes are all nice and soft underneath. Vegetables have some caramelization on top. We're going to let this cool down. Okay, you got a hot pan, a couple of tablespoons of olive oil in here. And that should coat the bottom of the pan. This is the key. And make sure that you got enough. And as you can see, it's pretty hot there. Let that oil heat up. You're gonna put some of this tomato sauce on the bottom. Maybe a third of it. A quarter of it maybe. And just let it cook without stirring it. You can add a little salt to it. A little sugar. And just let it cook like this without stirring for a couple minutes. Okay, it's been a couple of minutes now, and you can see that it's starting to dry up. There's I don't know if you can see the difference there clearly, but it's definitely sticking to the bottom there. Now I'm going to add the rest of this tomato sauce in. And I'm still not stirring it. I'm just adding this to the top. And I'm going to cook it for about 2 more minutes before I begin stirring it. Okay, now it's actually been cooking for a total of about 5 minutes here, and now I'm finally going to actually stir it. What you really want is those tomatoes at the bottom to really thicken up and get more concentrated. And we're going to continue cooking this, even though I'm stirring it now. We're going to continue cooking this until it's just a little bit thicker. Not quite like tomato paste, but it needs to be thicker than this. We want to really develop this. Okay, it's starting to get thick. I'm going to add about a teaspoon of paprika in here now. And you can see how thick this is. It's starting to become like, it's certainly not a liquid anymore. It's like a paste. Paprika's in. This is good. Now we're going to add all those vegetables that we braised in the oven. The tomatoes in the bottom and everything else. We're going to make this a homogeneous mixture in the pan first, and then we'll do the puree on them. So they just need to be stirred around together for I don't know, just a couple minutes. Really, just a couple minutes just to get them going here. Okay, this has all been loaded into a blender. Now I'm going to add about a quarter of a cup of basil, just roughly chopped basil, fresh basil, to this, and 120 milliliters of red wine. I'm actually using this wine produced Panagorda, which has excellent intense flavor for this, but you definitely want a good intense wine with this. You don't want to use a weak, wimpy wine. And this is just going to be processed to puree. And now we're going to return it back to the pot, put a lid on it, and begin simmering it very gently, but with the lid on, so close-fitting lid for at least the first half hour. After about half an hour, the splattering is mostly over. We're going to stir in the cognac, a little bit of stir with the cover off. I've got the heat down to 2 on a 1 to 10 now, and it's just barely steaming away, and that's the way it's going to be for about 15 more minutes, and then it'll be done up to this stage. Also look for my cocktail book, Cocktails of the South Pacific and Beyond, Advanced Mixology, available through Amazon online.